Fantastic. So it gives me great pleasure to actually introduce PICC's program director as our next speaker, Dr. Natasha Lerner, presenting tools for patient-centered contraceptive counseling. Dr. Lerner is the program director of the PICC program at Boston Medical Center. She has worked on sexual and reproductive health and rights programming, evaluation, research, and advocacy in both the United States and West Africa. Natasha is passionate about organizational effectiveness and management. She earned her DRPH from Boston University School of Public Health, her MPA from New York University, Robert F. Wagner Graduate School of Public Service, and her BA from Washington and Lee University. Dr. Lerner, take it away.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes giving you a preview of resources that PICC has created that we'll be reviewing in depth in a webinar in just under 2 weeks. This is a little bit of an advertisement and a sneak peek. The link to register for the webinar is being dropped in the chat right now. As you know, patient-centered contraceptive counseling is a focus of PICC's programming. We've developed 3 resources to support implementation for providers and counselors who want to conduct quality shared decision-making within the realities of a busy clinic schedule. So counseling frameworks like shared decision-making, patient-centered care, patient-led decision-making have all become buzzwords recently. Public health programs now assess whether a full range of methods is available to patients, meaning all the categories. These frameworks and principles are good for the intent and the results of contraceptive care. But they pose a challenge to providers who have time constraints and patients who do not have adequate knowledge to weigh all their options. Use of a decision aid has become a best practice to help patients learn about the range of contraceptives and to help narrow down their options and select a method that meets their unique needs. People want comprehensive information to feel satisfied with the counseling they receive. Even if they believe they know what method they want, they still want to hear about the alternative options and compare. While people value the verbal counseling they receive from their provider, many find oral information alone insufficient and want to also receive written information given the quantity of contraceptive methods and the attributes they have to weigh. One systematic review found that patients who had a visual aid accompany their contraceptive counseling perceived their counseling to be of higher quality than those who received counseling alone. People who use decision aids are more knowledgeable about options, feel more informed, and have more accurate expectations of the benefits and harms associated with options. And they participate more in the decision-making process. So we set out to create a patient-centered decision aid and a set of method information sheets. Here's the front of the decision aid. I'm going to give you a brief tour now. So the methods are actually organized in rows, how you start and stop on your own. Then the next row is prescription to start and then stop on your own. Then the shot gets its own box because it's a visit to start and stop on your own. Then the IUDs are in-person visit to start, stop on your own, and then sterilization is separate because it's permanent. The methods are color-coded by hormone, with non-hormonal methods purple, blue progestin only, and green combined. If you draw a line down the middle of the page, the hormonal are on the left and the non-hormonal on the right. To help patients focus if hormone is important, they don't have to look at the whole sheet. Within each box is an informative method name and icon. How frequently you have to take action to use the method is within the double arrow circle. This data includes extended use of LARC, and we are actually updating it right now to include the FDA approval for Mirena at 8 years. In the middle is a fact about the method that patients often care about, things like STI prevention, weight restriction, and return to fertility. And at the bottom of each box is what the method does to your period, which many patients care about. And even if they don't, it's still a good idea to anticipatorily counsel what that experience will be like. Finally, in the bottom right, there's a box with a QR code so that patients can access the materials for further reference. Here's the back of the decision aid. It was designed to be one double-sided sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper so that no staples are needed and it can be printed on any printer. Methods are not tiered across the sheets, giving information on some methods on one sheet and other methods on the other, because we found that patients were not being shown the full range of methods equally, and providers were preferencing pages with LARC methods on them. So instead, each side presents information on all methods for some method attributes, and then the other side contains other attributes, but always including all methods. First, in the left column is an image of a body with methods on it and reproductive organs. This image can be particularly helpful to people with low body literacy who don't understand that what their organs are, how big they are, that the uterus and vagina are different, or how an IUD actually sits in a uterus. It can be helpful for people who are also concerned about privacy to see this image. Then at the bottom of the left column are a few key statements to answer common patient questions related to privacy, dual method use, age restrictions, and gender-affirming hormone therapy. Next, if you look to the center and right column, this is a table you can read across: method, efficacy, emergency contraception indication. Efficacy is portrayed as X out of 100 people will get pregnant using the method in a year, which is better for low numeracy than percentages. It's also portrayed visually for comparison with 10-person images. Of note, the first row is average fertility with no method, because most patients don't understand their baseline, and that is really what a method should be compared against. In the right column is a brief description of when to use emergency contraception. This is not only a missed opportunity in counseling, but many patients do not know when they are indicated. Including EC indications is consistent with the decision to share typical use efficacy with patients. Additionally, knowing when a method might fail helps a patient consider how likely this is to happen to them and to evaluate if the method is right for them. Here's one of the method information sheets on the shot. We made 17 of these for each method. At the top is the name and some alternative names. Then the information is arranged in boxes with some text bolded. Top to bottom, the information includes how the method works, how you use the method, privacy and control considerations, if the method works immediately, contraindications, and emergency contraception indications. On the back is efficacy information, side effects, postpartum use, signs for when to contact your provider, and questions you may want to ask your provider. Then, of course, there's the box with the QR code to be tech-friendly. These sheets are uniform in their layout and what information they include, so it's easy to compare across a couple sheets. The decision aid will be available in 4 languages, and it is currently available in 3 on our website, which is going in the chat. The 17 method information sheets is currently available only in English, but they will be translated into 8 other languages or 7 other languages. Additionally, a 4-page provider guide was created to learn about the decision aid, the method information sheets, and how to optimally use them with patients. While the materials were designed to be used during the patient-provider interaction specifically, in case a patient finds them on the internet on their own, we did create a 2-page patient guide in case they want to learn more about the resource. During the webinar in 2 weeks, I will cover the methodology used to design these decision aids and method information sheets. I will share patient and provider feedback from the study, evaluation data that we used validated tools to assess these materials, and will also provide tips and tricks for how to use and optimize these materials in your clinic. Next, I want to cover PICCK. This is a provider tool for operationalizing patient-centered contraceptive counseling. Due to time, I'm again going to be very brief here, but PICCK will be the foundation for the webinar in 2 weeks that I'm giving with Dr. White. PICCK is a tool to remember the components of quality contraceptive counseling and shared decision-making. This is the final version of the tool, which you previously might have seen PICCK present as either PICCK1 or PICCK. We'll go into the methodology of how we developed this tool and the approach that we use to study this form of contraceptive counseling. We'll share patient quotes from that study, and we'll also discuss how to implement this approach immediately in clinic with tips and tricks. It will be a very practical session. For now, though, I want to highlight what PICCK stands for. So first, understand your patient's contraceptive journey by asking about their PHI. P is past experiences with contraception. H is health history. I is to ask what is important to them about their contraception. This is the most vital question you can ask during counseling. Asking what is important to a patient about contraception allows you to tailor your counseling to help them find a method that is right for them. Then, once you have gathered the patient's PHI, you can deliver patient-centered counseling by providing care. C is to counsel. This is when you translate the patient's preferences, experiences, and health into a conversation about method and options. This is when we recommend using the decision aid. Next, A is for autonomy, which really means to create the space for a patient to make an autonomous decision and make clear that you are there to support them in doing so. If the patient selects a method, then R is to review the logistics of the method, which can be additional information you didn't cover during counseling, like how you access or use the method. And it can also be anticipatorily counseling about possible side effects or what to expect. This might also be a good time to share the method information sheet of the method a patient selected. If they didn't select a method, it might be a time to give them a few different method information sheets to review on their own as they continue reflecting it for what they'd like. And finally, E is to support the patient experience and overtly communicate that support and patient-centered principles to the patient. Things like that they can stop and switch a method at any time, that you're here to support any issues that arise and manage any side effects, and that it is okay and even expected that their contraceptive needs will change in the future. So this is just a preview. If you scan the QR code or click the links dropped in the chat, you can access a 5-page guide to this approach. We're also going to have a video about it coming on our website within the next week. A link is also being dropped in the chat for a resource to help you think about how you can translate all the method attributes into the methods while counseling. I would love to make a plug now to help us develop more tools. PICCK is still developing tools, and we have 2 studies coming up. We're developing a contraception decision aid that's specifically for the postpartum period, given the unique considerations and preferences at this time. So we're actually currently recruiting for provider focus groups now. There's a link in the chat, and it's also in that Google Drive for today. We're also developing a self-guided e-learning course on patient-centered contraceptive counseling, and we'll be looking for beta testers to take that course. It's a couple hours long, later this fall or winter. So if you'd like to express your interest, there's also a link being put in the chat for that. The webinar is really going to dive into the methodology of these studies, the data that we had, and really discuss how you can practically use these tools with tips and tricks to implement them right after the webinar. So we'll spend a lot more time teaching those components of PICCK, and we hope to see you there. Thank you. And I'll just leave this up if there's any questions so people can register.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for that wonderful overview. We do have some questions coming in. The first one is, how can folks on the call today get copies of the patient information, the method information sheets, decision aid, et cetera, to give to their patients?
Yeah, so it is on our website. I believe Lily's putting a link in the chat. It's a PDF, it's free, you can download it. It prints on any printer. The colors have been selected so that they will grayscale correctly to be distinguishable if you only have a black and white printer. If printing resources are limited, we suggest laminating it and using like an expo marker so that you can write on it with your patients, but reuse it. And then they can always use the QR code if they want to take one home. So we are not currently shipping them out, though I would love to do that one day, but it is available on the website. And if you have any questions about how to use it or some ways to do it when you don't have a lot of funding for that, let me know.
Thanks. And one other quick question before we transition. Was the decision aid tested with adolescents? To what extent is it for use with adolescents, or is it more targeted towards adults?
That's a great question. So the way we did the study is we both directly engaged patients for some phases and we directly engaged providers for some phases. Because of IRB rules, the patients we always engaged were over the age of 18. However, we specifically selected providers who would test the material with both adults and adolescents. So we got provider feedback for the use with adolescents, but we were not able to get patient feedback for the use with adolescents.